Welcome back to Globe Teller, where we dive into the world's most gripping and chilling stories. Today, we uncover one of the most devastating man-made disasters in human history, a catastrophe that not only shook the Soviet Union, but left a radioactive scar across the world. This is the full story of Chernobyl. Let's begin on the morning of April 26, 1986. At 1:23 a.m., Reactor 4 at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant in Soviet Ukraine exploded during a late-night safety test gone horribly wrong. The explosion wasn't just mechanical, it was radioactive. Tons of radioactive materials burst into the atmosphere, spreading across Ukraine, Belarus, Russia, and eventually much of Europe. The test was supposed to simulate a power outage to ensure the reactor could stay cool until backup generators kicked in. But due to a series of design flaws and human errors, the reactor went into an uncontrollable state, overheating until it blew the steel and concrete roof into the sky. The initial explosion and subsequent fires released a toxic cloud of iodine-131, cesium-137, and strontium-90 into the air. The Soviet government at first tried to cover up the incident, but when radiation detectors in Sweden went off 1,000 kilometers away, the truth could no longer be denied. 2 plant workers died on the night of the explosion. Over the next few weeks, 28 emergency responders and firefighters succumbed to acute radiation syndrome. They were the first of thousands who would be exposed during cleanup. To contain the disaster, the USSR deployed over 200,000 liquidators, soldiers, scientists, and civilians sent to remove radioactive debris, build containment structures, and bury contaminated soil. Many worked without proper protection. Within 36 hours, the nearby town of Pripyat, home to nearly 50,000 people, was evacuated. Residents were told it would only be temporary. Most left with a suitcase or less, never to return. Eventually, over 350,000 people from surrounding regions were permanently displaced. Entire towns became ghost zones overnight. The Soviet state remained tight-lipped, fueling global concern and public mistrust. Now, let's talk about what the radiation actually did to the human body. Iodine-131, a short-lived radioactive isotope, settled in the environment and contaminated milk and food. It was quickly absorbed into the thyroid glands of children, resulting in a sharp spike in thyroid cancer cases. According to the World Health Organization, over 4,000 cases were reported among those exposed as children or adolescents, most of them treatable, but a few fatal. Long-term studies have shown elevated rates of leukemia in cleanup workers, cataracts and heart disease in highly exposed individuals, possible genetic mutations in some populations. And while exaggerated fears led many to expect tens of thousands of deaths, current data from UNSCEAR and the IAEA estimate the long-term death toll could range from 4,000 to 9,000, mostly among those with the highest exposures. That's still a staggering number, but far less than originally feared. But not all scars from Chernobyl were physical. The psychological damage may have been just as widespread. Many survivors experienced severe anxiety, PTSD, depression, and social isolation. Some were stigmatized as radioactive people and denied jobs or relationships. The Soviet collapse in 1991 only worsened the economic fallout. In many cases, fear of radiation caused more long-term suffering than radiation itself. Now here's something unexpected. The Chernobyl exclusion zone has become an ecological paradox. Covering 2,600 square kilometers, it's one of the most radioactively contaminated areas on Earth. And yet today, it's home to wolves, lynx, bears, boars, bison, storks, and even wild Przewalski's horses. Despite radiation levels, nature is thriving, perhaps because humans are gone. This accidental wildlife sanctuary raises strange and fascinating questions. Is wildlife better off with radiation than with human interference? Chernobyl changed how the world thinks about nuclear energy. In response, global agencies like the IAEA, UNSCEAR, and WHO worked with 25+ nations to conduct research and draft safety conventions. The disaster prompted international emergency response frameworks, real-time radiation monitoring networks, the creation of the IAEA scale to classify nuclear events, and stronger containment and evacuation protocols across the nuclear industry. Simply put, it reshaped nuclear safety forever. In 1986, A massive steel and concrete sarcophagus was hastily built over Reactor 4 to contain the radiation, but time and weather eroded it. So, in 2016, a new safe confinement arch, the largest movable land structure ever built, was slid into place, designed to seal the reactor for the next 100 years. It cost $1.7 billion, funded by more than 40 countries. A necessary investment to ensure the past doesn't come leaking into the future. In 2022, during the early days of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, Chernobyl was back in the headlines, not because of radiation spikes, but because of something potentially even more dangerous: human recklessness in a radioactive zone. Russian forces seized control of the Chernobyl exclusion zone within hours of crossing the border. Soldiers reportedly dug trenches in the radioactive red forest, disturbing some of the most contaminated soil on Earth. They looted equipment, disabled monitoring systems, and cut power to the plant, jeopardizing spent fuel storage and reactor cooling systems. International nuclear agencies sounded the alarm. For the first time in decades, there was a real risk that neglected containment structures could fail, or that human activity might stir up radioactive particles long settled into the soil. Ukraine later confirmed that some Russian soldiers suffered radiation sickness. Why? Because they had no idea how dangerous the area was. They weren't trained. They weren't protected. They were pawns, stumbling through one of Earth's most radioactive landscapes. This wasn't just carelessness. It was a warning. Chernobyl is no longer just a symbol of radiation. It's a geopolitical flashpoint. A place that once embodied nuclear tragedy is now tangled in modern warfare, misinformation, and the terrifying reality of what happens when military force collides with nuclear instability. And if that doesn't keep global leaders awake at night, it should. In a strange twist of fate, the same place once sealed off in fear has now become a magnet for curiosity. Chernobyl is a tourist destination. Every year, tens of thousands of visitors from around the world travel into the exclusion zone. With guided tours, protective suits, and Geiger counters strapped to their chests, they walk through the abandoned city of Pripyat, past the decaying Ferris wheel, empty classrooms, and moss-covered apartments frozen in time. For many, it's a form of dark tourism, a morbid pilgrimage to witness a catastrophe firsthand. Others come to see how nature is reclaiming the ruins, as wildlife thrives in the absence of human life. Radiation levels in most visited areas are surprisingly low, lower than some natural background levels found in other parts of the world. The red forest, near ground zero, remains so contaminated that even a few minutes off path could deliver a dangerous dose. The area around Reactor 4 is strictly off limits without extensive clearance and protection. Despite this, the mystique persists. Chernobyl is a place where time stopped, where human ambition collided with hubris, and where the air still hums with invisible danger. In 2019, the Chernobyl miniseries reignited global interest. Tour numbers spiked, and while tourism brings income and awareness, it also raises ethical questions. Should we tread on the graves of disasters? Or is bearing witness how we ensure history is never forgotten? Either way, the message is clear. Chernobyl is no longer a ghost town. It's a mirror, one that reflects our fear, our curiosity, and our mistakes. Chernobyl reminds us that even when silence fills a ghost town, lessons echo across generations, and without vigilance and humility, history may repeat itself. Thanks for watching Globe Teller. If this story moved you, hit that like button, subscribe for more chilling world history, and tell us in the comments, what untold disaster or forgotten mystery should we uncover next?